Hi guys, Nada here and welcome to another case review. Now, while most of the cases nowadays are just focused on having tempered glass everywhere and a lot of RGB, this is something completely different. So here we have the Riotoro Morpheus case. This case is mostly focused on airflow with mesh panels pretty much on every single side of the case. But you can also call it an IKEA case because you actually have to build it yourself and it comes in pieces. Now you only need a screwdriver for that, or you need a Swiss Army knife with a hope that it comes with a screwdriver. Whatever rocks your boat, and definitely set aside at least an hour to do so. This is also a modular case, which means that you can build it in one of the two formats, so it can be a mid-tower case or a mini tower case, whatever you like and whatever you want to fit in it. We're going to cover that a bit later. Now, this case also comes with the two USB Type-C ports on its I/O panel, which is very rare. And once you've built it, you need zero tools to put your components in. So it's a toolless installation case, which is actually really nice. So there is a lot of very cool ideas when it comes to design of this case, but there is also some things that in my opinion just don't make a lot of sense. So there's going to be plenty to talk about in this review. This case costs 190 euros here in the Netherlands or $190 in the US. And we know that there is a lot of cool cases in that price range. So let's see if this Riotoro Morpheus case can compete with those cases. Let's go. This video is brought to you by the new Asus ZenBook Pro Duo. It features a stunning 4K OLED display and a second 4K touchscreen, making it the ultimate productivity laptop. Now, with the latest Intel Core processors and an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060, it can handle any creative task and you can even game on it. Check it out using the links in the description below. One thing you'll definitely need for this Morpheus case is a bit of patience. You can choose to build it in two form factors, either a mid-tower with a bit more space for storage, or a mini tower. Now, for both designs, the footprint stays the same. They fit exactly the same everything, except in the bigger one you can have 4 GPUs instead of 3, and you can add an extra storage cage so you can fit 2 extra 2.5-inch SSDs. You pretty much only have to decide how tall you want your tower to be. Either way, it will take even an experienced PC builder more than 1 hour of hard work to screw in all the 70+ screws needed for this case to be done. Now, the instructions themselves are not hard at all, and the build process isn't hard either, and Riotoro actually packaged all the parts really nicely. There is several layers of small parts and accessories, but there is just a lot of them. And here we come to the first thing that makes little sense to me. In the marketing, they say that this case has an innovative design that requires no tools for installing your components. And that is true, but only after your case is assembled. So, in my opinion, after you spend 2 hours with a screwdriver and 70 screws required to assemble the case, a few more or less screws on top of that make little to no difference. Now, overall build quality of the panels is very decent. The look is definitely something different with all the ventilation, and it'll be down to your taste if you like the metal box concept or not. But it is good to know that the finish of the case is done really well. So you have a removable dust filter on the bottom and on the top, and there is a thin second layer of mesh functioning as a filter on the rest of the panels. 3 fans are included. There is 220mm fans in the front and an 80mm fan in the back. Now, the front fans offer red LEDs, but I have to say none of them look or feel particularly premium. Now, front I/O panel is actually pretty interesting. It has a power button, reset button, 2 audio connections, 2 USB 3 Type A connections, as well as the 2 USB Type-C headers. Now, as cool as that sounds, it is important to point out that currently, motherboards with 2 Type-C connections are extremely rare. Now, I know that MSI's Z390 Godlike has it, but not many others. Riotoro's reasoning here seems to be that if you buy a case, it's supposed to be good for a couple of years, and there is definitely some truth in that. But by the time we see more motherboards with more Type-C headers in the future, there will also be more cases that support it with some other possible innovations that the time brings. So, in most cases right now, you will just end up using one USB Type-C port. Now the front I/O panel also offers a range of RGB controls. You can change the color, the brightness, as well as the mode of your RGB fans. But remember when I said the fans you get are just red LED fans? Yep, it comes with an extensive RGB controller and no RGB fans to actually use it. But to be fair, you might want to buy some other fans anyways. Inside of the case is actually very interesting, I have to say. It is a dual chamber case, which I personally love, as they're always so easy to work with and they are great for cable management. Now the main compartment is actually on the right side of the case, which is different from the usual left positioning, and it means that your whole system is actually flipped upside down. It fits a GPU up to 400 millimeters in length, but a CPU cooler only up to 130 millimeters in height, which is actually not that much and might limit you to low profile coolers or water cooling pretty much. Keep in mind that goes for both formats, so even if you opt for building a mid-tower option, you still won't have space for a taller cooler. And that goes for the GPU as well. Now, even though 400 millimeters gives you the freedom to use a very long GPU, it cannot be that tall. The left side compartment is reserved for your PSU storage, and there is plenty of room as well as a lot of Velcro strips for your cable management. You can fit two 3.5-inch drives and two 2.5-inch drives in the mini tower case, while in the mid tower you have space to add an extra SSD cage that will allow you to fit two extra 2.5-inch drives. When it comes to fan support, it fits 220 or 240 millimeter fans in the bottom. In the front, whatever the case format you pick, it will still fit up to two 120 or 140 millimeter fans. When it comes to the top, we can fit also two 140 millimeter fans, but this is the mini tower version, and if you look inside, there is so little space to the motherboard that I really doubt we can fit any fans there. So if you do plan on putting fans or a radiator on the top, you should opt for the mid-tower version. Alright, so let's look at the build that I put together here. So for the motherboard, I have the Asus ROG Maximus 11 Hero. For the CPU, there is an Intel i7 8700K. There is 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro memory, because this case obviously benefits from some RGB. For the GPU, I have Gigabyte RTX 2060 Gaming OC. Initially, I wanted to use the MSI Gaming X GPU, but it actually didn't fit because it was too tall, and Gigabyte was the only card I actually have here that fits. So keep that in mind. If you plan on buying a beefy GPU, because you're already spending 200 euros on a case, it makes sense. Make sure you keep an eye out on the sizes, because there's a chance that it's not going to fit, especially when you count in the PSU connections. Now for the CPU cooler, I have Riotoro's 240 millimeter all-in-one cooler that's called Bifrost. It has a very cool name. For the storage, as you can see, I have Corsair's MP510 NVMe SSD. Powering all this is Riotoro's Enigma 750 watt power supply, which is actually made by Seasonic, so it should be a pretty safe bet. And it's very good if you like matching your brands within your build. Alright, so let's see how this case actually performs with this particular build in it. I think it's fair to say that it does exactly what I expected it to do. The cooling is excellent, thanks to all the ventilation going on, with some incredibly low temperatures even under full stress. CPU and GPU temperatures in Blender stress test and gaming are pretty good, but the fact that the case and the other internal temperatures remain that low is actually pretty exceptional. Now typically we'd expect around 40 degrees for typical ATX towers, and seeing low 30s here, barely over ambient, is great. Unfortunately, it does come at the expense of noise cancelling. This open frame does very little to hold sounds in. Riotoro's all-in-one cooler isn't extremely quiet, and neither are the stock fans, so even in idle, this case was pretty audible. Now it's not loud, but it's definitely present. So if you want a silent case, make sure you opt for silent components. Now I really think that this Riotoro Morpheus is a very, very interesting case, and I really appreciate when designers actually do something different because we don't really need more of the same. But there are some things that I wish they've done differently. Now, I do wish that this case actually came pre-built in one of the two formats because it takes so much time to just put the case together before even getting to your system. And then if you want to, there should be an option to change it into a different format. Now, that is for most of the people. When it comes to case modders, I do think that they would appreciate having the panels apart. The second thing I want to say is the modularity of the case. So first, when you hear the word modular, you just expect a tiny bit more than this case has to offer. Now, you can make the mini tower like we have here or a mid-tower case, but internally, they're exactly the same. The only difference is that in the big one, you can fit 2 more SSDs and some fans on the top, and that's it. So I do wish that they took that idea of modularity and just did something more with it. For example, made the case a bit wider if you want to fit a wider range of GPUs or CPU coolers, or made 2 completely different formats, for example, an ITX case or an ATX case, or maybe add some tempered glass panels for people that want to show off their build or not. So when you hear modularity, you just expect something a bit more than 5 centimeters in height. Now, the third thing I want to say is definitely the fans. I do think they should find a better fan manufacturer because the current fans that this case comes with just don't fit the €200 price tag. Now, Riotoro obviously supplied this case with a very advanced RGB controller, so they expect you to go and buy some other fans, but keep in mind that is an extra cost. Now, speaking of RGB controllers and extra cost, I do think that the RGB controller itself, as well as the extra USB Type-C connection in the front, are just an extra cost that are making this case a bit more expensive. So, and they add little to the case because this is not really an RGB focused case, and most of the motherboards out there don't have 2 USB Type-C ports. So, if they excluded the RGB controller and the extra USB Type-C, this case would have cost less and be more competitive in that way. So I think that's also a bit of an overlook. But overall, this case actually has great build quality and the performance of the case is actually exceptional. I don't think we see very often temperatures so low. So if you are looking for a case of this design, a bit of a metal box mash look that performs excellent, then this Riotoro Morpheus case is definitely something to look into. Now, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this review and about this interesting case. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and yeah, see you next one. Bye!